When I was growing up, the public library was the most magical place in the world. And the librarian who worked there just seemed like that was the luckiest person in the world, right? And that limitless possibility of what I might find on the shelf, what, the books and how they could really transport me to different places, to different experiences, to different ways of living life. I still feel that way every time I walk in a library. I feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is here and that I have the ability to take advantage of this. It's just an amazing thing. Reading has really been a way for me to just continue to build upon who I am throughout my life and making me strive to be smarter, better, more engaged. And without reading and without libraries, I don't know where I would be.
Everybody should know that they're welcome when they come in the library. And if you come into a library and you're looking on a shelf and you don't see books that are created that reflect your own background or your own culture, I don't want anyone to have that experience. I want people to feel that they do belong in the library. The feedback that I've had from people, whether it was when I worked with children's books, for example, having a caregiver say to me, the family depicted in this book looks like my family. And we so appreciate getting to see our family represented on the pages. It has to do with partly about self-esteem. Part of it is this is the society that we live in is a diverse society, and that's how it should be. The shelves should not only belong to one group of people.
Especially when I was a public librarian, I thought all the time about what does my community want? As a librarian, that really is the most important thing that you can do, is consider your community's needs first. And so if somebody requests a book that I think, wow, I would not want to read that book, I am still going to take that request extremely seriously, because it's a community member. Their tax dollars are paying for that, and them articulating that they want that book is a very important thing. And so that means that it is absolutely a book that should be considered for our collection. On the opposite side, if there are books that were purchased, let's say 20 years ago, and no one's reading them anymore, they're not getting checked out, then those are books that maybe don't need to be in the collection anymore, that I can then make room for other materials that people are requesting instead.
Once upon a time, there would have been probably 2 books that you could have where a child who had same-gender parents could see their own family depicted in the pages of the book. Maybe only 2 books. And now there's a handful more, but not a ton. And the slow work to get those books into the world felt like, it really was, for a person who wants those books to be in the world, it felt like, okay, finally, we're moving in the right direction where the bookshelves will be more inclusive. And so to have the political pushback is discouraging.
Seeing books about yourself is very personal, being banned, right? You go home and your culture is praised and celebrated. You go to school and it's suddenly silenced. It's very confusing, especially for a child who's young. Like, why can't I celebrate my culture? Why can't I bring my cultural foods to class? And kids say that it doesn't look right or doesn't taste right because it's not pizza or a hot dog. And when I was in elementary school, I used to not want to wear my textured hair out. I used to hide away from the fact that I'm Jamaican American. I used to hide away from those things, and I wanted to be as close to American culture as possible because I didn't want to be seen as somebody who was, ostracized in my schooling. That is a very real expectation of life. That's a real, very real reality of children who aren't, white in America, and who aren't from America, who have different cultures outside that they're very connected to outside of American culture.
It's one thing to criticize sort of indoctrination, all that stuff, and to claim that that's what's happening. But the second you are the ones indoctrinating by taking away those resources, I think it kind of spells out the truth for what's happening. You can tout how you're trying to stop, you're trying to protect kids all you want, especially in regards to LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff. But I think the moment that you try to remove those resources from kids that need it, especially, I think, in recent years, the trans movement, and how a lot of pushback is in the name of defending kids, when in reality, you look at cases like Next Benedict over in Oklahoma, and how kind of the spreading of hatred and the lack of resources for these kids to feel comforted and to feel like they're acknowledged. It's way more dangerous than any kind of, again, indoctrination could ever be.
A lot of teachers would shy away from saying certain things. I took an anatomy class, and Henrietta Lacks is a very prominent person within the biology, within the STEM world. Couldn't talk about that. That's controversial. That would make, and it was quoted to make, quote, white kids feel uncomfortable.
As a reader, I have read plenty of things that have made me sad and uncomfortable. I'm from a pretty young age, but when when you read something and it makes you feel sad, right there, you're probably going to be cultivating your feelings of compassion and empathy. You probably feel sad because the book is showing you something that's gone wrong in the world.
I believe that we need to be able to be educated about other cultures, otherwise we run the risk of having a generation that is ignorant to other people besides themselves, what they know, right? How can we run a world that people do not know how to interact with differences and how to accept those who do not look like you, who do not eat the same foods as you, who do not practice the same religion as you, right? And just because they're different doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's the way that they live their life, and you need to learn how to respect it, right? And it's very important in education that we teach children that I may not necessarily agree with you, but I need to learn how to respect you. Book banning just basically says that I don't agree with you, therefore I'm going to try to erase you.
I do think that trust in your child is a big thing, right? And encouraging them to identify what they need as far as reading material at a specific time in their lives.
If I was talking with a caregiver and they weren't sure, this book, my child's interested in reading, is it appropriate for their age? I tried to make sure my answer always started with, you could read it together, or I hope you'll talk to your child about what they're reading. My wish as a librarian is that that child has an adult in their life that they can then talk to and say, I read a book and here's what happened and it made me feel sad. And that adult will then talk to the child about their feelings, right, that came from reading that book.
Again, this world is crazy. This world has very, very real topics happening, very important things. We have wars going on. We have a lot of things going on. That the last thing we need is to divide the human race even further than we already divided. We should be helping to mend that gap rather than further dividing ourselves.
I really like this country a lot. I am on the left, and believe it or not, I am still very much a patriot. I think that just because our country had, and is still dealing with not great things such as, redlining or a higher concentration of wealth up top, and still these racist ideals, that doesn't mean we have to hide from it. I think that encountering and learning and being curious about these things, that's what makes us come out stronger than before. I think that a lot of people like toting the whole melting pot idea, which I think is kind of true, but the more we end up actually accepting other ideas and letting them spread, especially in books and where we're growing up and learning, I think that's how we can actually achieve that kind of mythological melting pot.